When two stars collide again, the unfinished story of Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy. The night they first shared the same frame, the air felt different, softer, slower, almost suspended in time. Kim Woo-bin stood tall, quiet confidence wrapped in shadows, while Bae Suzy carried light wherever she moved, a glow that didn't ask for permission. When their eyes met on set, it wasn't thunder, it wasn't fire, it was something subtler, something deeper. A connection that didn't scream, but stayed. A moment that didn't rush, but waited. Fans felt it before the cameras even rolled. In the pauses between takes, in the half-smiles never scripted, in the silences that spoke louder than dialogue. Their story didn't begin with headlines. It began with timing imperfect, fragile, real. They came from different rhythms of fame. Woo Bin, carved by storms and strength, carrying roles like armor. Suzy, shaped by grace and pressure, balancing expectation and elegance. Together, they were contrast and harmony, shadow and shine, night meeting dawn at the edge of the sky. When the world finally noticed, it was inevitable. Cameras flashed, rumors bloomed, names were linked, and suddenly a quiet connection became public conversation. The industry spoke. Fans debated. The story grew louder, faster, heavier. But behind the noise, they remained two people learning how to exist in the same spotlight without losing themselves. Their time together wasn't rushed love or dramatic chaos. It was simple moments stretched thin by fame. Coffee dates hidden behind schedules. Conversations cut short by call times. Laughter interrupted by obligations. Love lived in between commitments, never fully owned by time. Then life shifted. The script changed without warning. Illness entered like an uninvited guest, heavy and unavoidable. Kim Woo-bin stepped away from the world, from screens and sets, from everything familiar. Strength was no longer measured by presence, but by endurance. Silence replaced spotlight. Healing replaced headlines. And Suzy, she stood at a distance the world misunderstood. Support didn't come with constant visibility. Care didn't need public proof. Sometimes love shows up quietly, and sometimes it lets go gently, knowing survival matters more than staying. When their paths separated, it wasn't a dramatic ending. No slammed doors. No bitter words. Just two lives moving in different directions, carrying memories like folded letters never thrown away. Years passed. Woo Bin returned stronger, not louder but deeper. His smile changed calmer, grounded, shaped by gratitude rather than ambition. Suzy evolved too, her presence refined, her choices intentional, her light steadier than before. They grew apart, but not erased. Fans never forgot. Every interview sparked questions. Every appearance invited comparisons. Every shared history resurfaced like a familiar song playing unexpectedly. The past lingered not as scandal, but as softness. And then came the moments that reignited whispers. A glance at the same event. A schedule overlap. A quiet acknowledgement. Nothing dramatic. Nothing loud enough for headlines to confirm, yet enough for hearts to notice. In a world trained to chase spectacle, it was the subtlety that felt thunderous. Two familiar names appearing in the same orbit again, not colliding, not avoiding, just existing within the same moment, fully formed and unafraid. When they crossed paths again, it wasn't the spark of youth that returned. It was something steadier. Two people who had weathered time, loss, growth, and healing. Their eyes carried history, but also clarity. Whatever once was no longer needed to be reclaimed. It had already shaped them. There was no rush to explain anything. No urgency to define the past or promise the future. They moved with ease, with the quiet confidence of those who had survived storms separately and learned how to stand without leaning. If there was warmth, it was familiar. If there was distance, it was respectful. Nothing felt unresolved, only understood. Fans watched closely, not searching for proof, but for truth. And the truth wasn't a reunion stage for cameras or a love story rewritten for nostalgia. It was something rarer. Two people acknowledging that what they shared mattered, without needing it to be everything again. They spoke of each other kindly when asked, not with longing, not with regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude for timing that taught them, for connection that held them briefly, but honestly, for a chapter that ended not because it failed, but because life demanded something different. What made their story endure wasn't the promise of what if, but the acceptance of what was. In an industry that thrives on drama, theirs stood out for its restraint. No public heartbreak. No public reconciliation. Just mutual respect preserved across years and distance. And perhaps that's why their story still resonates. Because not all love stories are meant to circle back into the same shape. Some exist to change you, to prepare you, to remind you of who you were before life asked more of you. Some stories don't end with togetherness, but with peace. When two stars collide again, it doesn't always mean they're meant to burn brighter together. Sometimes it means they can pass through the same sky without losing their light. Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy didn't give the world a fairy tale ending. They gave it something more honest, a story of timing, growth, and quiet understanding. A reminder that unfinished doesn't always mean incomplete. Some stories finish by becoming part of who you are. And that is how theirs ends, not with a declaration, but with a calm knowing that what they shared was real, meaningful, and forever carried forward in the people they became. What made Kim Woo-bin and Bae Suzy unforgettable wasn't just the drama they shared on screen, it was the quiet gravity that seemed to pull them toward each other even when the cameras stopped rolling. During those early days, when uncontrollably fond was still finding its heartbeat, something subtle but powerful unfolded behind the scenes. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of connection that lived in glances held a second too long and conversations that continued long after filming wrapped. On set, their energy shifted the atmosphere. Staff members noticed at first the way Woo-bin instinctively slowed his steps to match Suzy's pace, or how Suzy's laughter came easier when he was nearby. Between takes, they often stood slightly apart from the crowd, talking in low voices, sharing stories that felt private even in a crowded space. It wasn't romance on display. It was comfort, the kind that doesn't need to be explained. There were moments that never made it into interviews or press releases, like the late-night shoots when exhaustion hung heavy and Woo-bin quietly offered Suzy his jacket without saying a word. Or the times Suzy checked on him during breaks, her concern genuine, her questions soft. These weren't gestures meant for attention, they were instinctive, almost unconscious. That's what made fans pay attention later, when old clips resurfaced and patterns became impossible to ignore. As filming progressed, their on-screen emotions deepened, but so did the off-screen respect. They challenged each other as actors, pushing scenes further, adding layers that weren't in the script. Directors noticed how easily they synced, how one reaction fed naturally into the other. It was as if they spoke the same emotional language, translating pain, longing, and vulnerability without needing direction. Then came the interviews. Carefully worded answers, gentle smiles, compliments that felt a little too thoughtful to be routine. Woo-bin spoke about Suzy's dedication with admiration that lingered, while Suzy described his strength with a softness that caught fans' attention. Neither crossed a line, but the space between their words was filled with meaning. It was enough to make people wonder. And then life shifted the story in a way no script could have predicted. When Woo-bin's health battle emerged, the world's focus turned serious. In that moment, the noise faded, and what remained were the quiet bonds that truly mattered. Though both maintained privacy, fans noticed something else: how Suzy never distanced herself from the memory of that time. She didn't rewrite the past or avoid it. Instead, she carried it with grace, never dismissing the significance of what they shared. That's why, even after time passed and paths diverged, the story didn't feel finished. It felt paused. Every so often, something small would happen: a mention, a timing coincidence, an old clip trending again, and the conversation would restart. Not because fans wanted drama, but because the foundation of their connection felt real enough to survive silence. There was no bitterness, no public fallout, no reason to erase what once existed. Just two people who shared something intense at a pivotal moment in their lives. What continues to draw people in is the maturity of it all. There was no spectacle, no forced narrative, just a shared chapter that left a mark. Their story represents a rare kind of relationship in the spotlight, one defined not by public declarations, but by mutual respect and emotional depth. Even now, when fans look back, they don't just see characters from a drama. They see two young stars standing at the edge of something meaningful, unaware of how life would soon test them. And that's why the story still resonates. Because some connections don't need constant presence to remain powerful. They live on in memory, in growth, and in the quiet acknowledgement that something genuine once existed and mattered.